Hi, this is Bala Chaudhry from DePaul University. You're listening to Smart Talk. The Mike Nowak Show starts in 3, 2, 1.
Let's go back in time to January 1st, 2020.
Who are you?
I'm Julie from 4 Months in the Future.
Actually? Are you here to tell me what's going to happen?
Yeah. I mean, because of the butterfly effect, I can only really give you some loose details, but we'll go through the basics. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So, do you want the good news or the bad news?
Oh, good news?
Yeah. Great choice. Yeah, cool. So, things have never been better for climate change.
No, that's great.
Dolphins in the Venice canals.
Really?
I know. Well, I mean, I saw it on Facebook. I don't know if it's a real thing. My aunt posted it, but it seems pretty legit.
Okay, well, that's incredible. You know, especially given the Australian wildfires.
The what? Oh, yeah.
Because, I mean, those are pretty, I think those are going to be the defining feature of 2020.
Yeah, you'd think.
Oh, no?
Not even a little bit.
Really? Because they're a pretty big deal.
Yeah, your definition of a pretty big deal is going to change, for sure.
Wow. Okay, so what is the bad news then?
You are going to want to pull all your investments.
What?
Yeah, just get everything out of the stock market. Get it all out.
Oh, it's a recession.
You know what? Put a little money in Zoom.
Isn't that a conferencing app?
Yes, trust me.
Just go. Welcome to the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. Yes, you went back in time to an intro from last week, and then you went forward in time to an intro from this week.
Oh, isn't that from next week?
And then maybe we'll have them from 2 weeks in the future. We don't know. Which leaves us with 30 seconds to say hi. And this hour of the Mike Nowak Show is brought to you by Bartlett Tree Experts, because every tree needs a champion. Go to bartlett.com. We are talking bread today. It's going to be an interesting show. We're talking bread. We're talking birds. So anything that starts with a B, okay, will work for us today. And some great guests who are standing by right now on the Zoom. So we will start with, and I'm looking at a bird on my bird feeders, and the bird's going, "Where's all the seed? Where did it all go?" Well, you guys ate it all earlier in the week. There's nothing I can do about that. But we'll be talking about that later. It's the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. We hope you stick around all day. Hey, join us on Facebook or YouTube. We'll be right back.
Yeah, you can catch it when you're at the grocery store. You can catch it off the handle of a door. You can catch it from a friend just dropping by. You can catch it like a baseball from the sky. Honey, I know that you feel so all alone, but everybody must stay home.
Everybody must stay home. And I don't think we're going to get zapped by Mark Zuckerberg for that one. That's one of those COVID-19 parodies. That one is by the Connor Party. I think that...
There's a good name.
Yeah, it's a great name, actually. And that's kind of what happens in this day and age. And welcome back to the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. And those of you watching on the YouTube and the Facebook, there's Lagata. She is the star, as you know, of everything, and she's crawling around here on the desktop where there's really no room at all, but she's still going to be here. I know. Say, wave to the people. Okay, there you go.
Ellen had her cat up too.
That's good. And the Ellen, you'll probably have to unmute there, and Alyssa, you can unmute too, because we're going to talk to you. Right? No. Now she went after my breakfast. So no.
Well, that's why she stopped by. She wanted to say hi and get your breakfast.
Of course, that's why she stopped by. A little while ago, it's actually several weeks. I got an email from a woman who works at Family Farm, Anna Crofts, and she said, "Hey, you probably want to know about this. There's a way that folks are getting bread in the Midwest, and I became interested in that. When you say, well, getting bread, early on in the COVID-19 experience, I realized, and Peggy, you did too, that there were certain things you could not get a hold of, one of which was yeast. And I had no idea. I mean, how many of us, raise your hand if you ever thought you'd get to the day when bread was hard to come by. All right. And then suddenly people couldn't get yeast. People couldn't get, we tried to get whole wheat flour. You weren't getting any of that, especially if you had a regular delivery from a supermarket. And, we, for a long time, Kathleen and I, we actually made our first trip out into the real world, into a store this past week after about 8 weeks. And it was terrifying. I have to tell you, it was absolutely terrifying, even though the place we went was the Dill Pickle Co-op, and it was wide open, and they have a special seniors time, and you can go in there, and really it was pretty safe, but still that experience going out there. So before then, we were trying to get stuff delivered. We had stocked up a little bit, and we had some yeast, and we were putting it in the mail and sending it to friends and relatives because they didn't have anything like that. And I had no idea that anything like this would happen. And I think a lot of people didn't have any idea that this would happen. So we get introduced to Alyssa Hartmann, who's with the Artisan Grain Collaborative, collaborative, based in Madison, Wisconsin. And she's on the Zoom with us right now, as is Ellen King, head baker, director of baking operations and co-owner of Hewn Bakery, which is in Evanston, Illinois. Let's start with you, Alyssa. You saw all this happening in real time too, because you're with a bread outfit. How did it affect you when all of this started?
Well, I think, as was true for lots of people, I wasn't sure what was about to happen as things were starting. And so back in kind of mid-March, I was thinking back to, Ellen and I were pretty frequently and furiously texting, trying to figure out what is going to happen. And the work that the Artisan Grain Collaborative does is in convening stakeholders that are engaged in what we call the grain value chain in the upper Midwest. So we are working to connect farmers, millers, maltsters, bakers, chefs, brewers, and distillers, the people who grow, process, and work with grain in this region. And what we're trying to do is help support and cultivate the development of a regional regenerative grain shed in the upper Midwest. So we want to create a situation in which farmers are able to choose to grow small grains instead of other crops. So things like wheat and barley and spelt and rye, things that bakers really like to work with. And so we were trying to figure out, in the midst of this pandemic, how do we ensure that grain continues to move off of farms, through local mills, into bakeries, that bakeries are able to employ their staff and purchase local flour and do all of those things. And we really weren't sure what was going to happen. But like you mentioned, Mike, with not being able to buy yeast and bread not being accessible on grocery store shelves, I knew that that meant that food pantries also didn't have access to those products, because oftentimes the emergency feeding system really relies on excess from retail in order to have bread to give to their clients. And so I was in the shower at home and thought, what if we could figure out a way for local bakeries to produce bread using local flour for food pantries? And so Ellen and I exchanged some messages about that, and she said, yep, let's try this, and was the first bakery in Illinois to be producing Neighbor Loaves.
Hey, well, you get a ding for that. Peggy, you had your hand up there.
Yeah, I just, there's a term you used that I'm sure a lot of our listeners aren't familiar with: regenerative grain shed.
Yeah, that's pretty
mean?
jargony, isn't it? Our idea of a regenerative grain shed, and I think there's a lot of different definitions floating around about the word regenerative in general. It's sort of the new sustainability in a lot of ways. What does it mean?
Yeah, those words, they we used to say environment, then we said sustainability and sustainable, and now we've got regenerative, and then next week it'll be something else.
It's a green, sustainable, regenerative grain shed.
Yeah, exactly. Those things. And the goal is that the agricultural practices that folks are using to produce grain is treating the soil with care, that's reducing the amount of pesticides and other artificial inputs on the landscape, and that is also improving their own economic viability on the farm.
And this
So
is
those are some of the things it means.
okay. And then the general Midwest area, Illinois, Michigan, Wisconsin, Iowa, Minnesota.
Yes, all those things. We've primarily focused up to this point on Illinois, Wisconsin, and Minnesota, but increasingly other states in the region.
Well,
as
you have an Indiana bakery involved in
in
the
Bloomington. Yes, we do.
When does Iowa get on board?
It's a good question. I have some emails sitting in my inbox from folks from Iowa that I need to respond to, in fact. So maybe sooner than later.
One of the things you've mentioned, and you mentioned also on the website, and by the way, go to my website, MikeNovak.net, and you can find the links to all of this, including a really wonderful page that has resources for people who are looking for bread products and ingredients and everything, pretty much everything related to bread. And can I assume that going through there, folks who have been unable to find certain products could purchase them and finally get a hold of them?
Yeah, it's interesting. This idea of there being a flour shortage or a grain shortage, certainly people are not able, and I think this is still true, might not be able to access the products that they're used to in the places that they're used to getting them. But I think it's really important for your listeners to know that there's actually not a grain shortage. There's not a flour shortage. We have tons of grain and flour right here in the upper Midwest that's sitting in storage for people's use. It's just that our global supply chains have fractured during this time, but our local and regional food system has got you. People have grain and flour for you. So take a look at our upper Midwest grain and beverage resource list, and you can see a number of mills where you can order flour that are right here in the region and can ship grain to your home for you.
A couple of them even have yeast in stock.
That's true. Yes.
Yeah.
And popcorn.
And I think it is important, and I'm glad you pointed that out, that it's not that the grain products don't exist, we just can't get them to the people efficiently. One of the things that this pandemic has exposed here, and I deliberately use the word exposed, is the fragility of far too many systems in America. What we are discovering is that the greatest nation in the history of the planet, as some people like to call it, certainly the richest, has watched institution after institution crumble in the face of this pandemic, whether it's the supply chain. I mean, we've got farmers out there burying crops that they have produced and plowing them under because they can't get them anywhere, and it's too expensive for them to keep. Slaughtering animals needlessly that were raised to be slaughtered and sold, but they can't get that out there. And the meat packing plants forcing people to go in and work when there's COVID-19. The healthcare system is in ruins to some degree. The frontliners risking their lives just to keep people safe, and the financial system. I mean, on and on and on. The political system, all of it has been exposed for being propped up with toothpicks, basically. And we have something come along like the pandemic, and man, all the dominoes are starting to fall. So then you have to get people like you in regions who say, I'm going to make sure that folks can get what they need. And you represent the Midwest, but you would like to reach out across the country, I would imagine.
And specific to this program, Neighbor Loaves, that we started, which I can describe just briefly before we hear from Ellen, there are entities now throughout the country that are participating in this program. So this idea that I had in the shower, Neighbor Loaves, was to get bakeries producing bread using local grain for food pantries. And so it's been relatively simple. Bakeries have added a new product to their online ordering platforms, which I will say most of them didn't have until the pandemic. It's been incredible how agile people have been in responding in our local area and region. And the community is invited to purchase that bread. And then all of those orders are produced and they are sent to partnered food pantries, much in the way that a bakery would produce for any other wholesale client. So that is the concept, simple, but it is working. And I'm pretty comfortable saying that as of today, over 6,000 Neighbor Loaves have been purchased and are in the process of, if they've not already reached a food pantry, getting there. And we've been cracking away at this since March 28th. So that's a lot of bread in not so many weeks.
Yeah, that's
Wow.
fantastic. Congratulations on that. Ellen, you were on board right at the beginning. So tell me what it's been like for you as a baker here in Illinois.
Well, I think you had mentioned how everything kind of got disrupted very quickly. And for us, when Alyssa had called about doing the Neighbor Loaves, to be honest, I was so overwhelmed that I was like, I don't, we were moving everything online within a 12-hour span when we realized we couldn't have people in our store anymore. And so to think about, then supplying Neighbor Loaves, it was pretty overwhelming. And fortunately, I have a really good business partner who I said to Alyssa, I said, you know what, I'm like the baker. If this is what we want to do, I'll put you in contact with Julie. And then Julie ran with it. We added this to our website, explained it to our customers. And like yesterday, even I was at the store, and some people just order 5 or 10 Neighbor Loaves, and that's all they're ordering. So they're not even doing an order for themselves. And
Right. And I want to just make that clear. When you do it, you're specifically buying bread that you are going to bake, and it's going to go to people who need bread. It doesn't have anything to do with you personally, except that you're purchasing this bread, right?
yeah, so people buy the bread online, and then we tally up twice a week because we work with a local food pantry that they've seen their gross. I think they have 75% increase in people coming through, and every week we're donating 500 loaves of bread. So we do 200, and I think we do, actually it's just under 500. We do 300 on Saturdays, 275 on Wednesdays. And that's the most that they can take, and honestly that we can kind of produce with our other stuff. So about 500 loaves every week since it started.
Wow, that's fabulous.
And if people want to, your website, what is that, Ellen?
It's Hewn, Hewn, hewnbread.com.
Okay. We need to take a break here, but when we come back, I want to talk a little bit more about this and what folks can do to help and how they can bake their own bread and what they should be doing to make that happen. It's the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. Please stick around. We will be right back.
I can't go to work. I have to stay in my house all day. I can't go out to play. And if I do, I'm staying 6 feet away.
Yeah, there he is. You know, I didn't know Bob Rivers was still around. That's he's another one of the guys that's out there doing these crazy songs. And I'm not going to run out. I can tell you, I'm not going to run out of those things.
It's its
Welcome
own
back.
industry.
Yeah, welcome back to the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. Very pleased to have on the Zoom machines Ellen King, the head baker and co-owner of Hewn, Hewn Bakery in Evanston, Illinois. We also have Alyssa Hartmann, executive director of the Artisan Grain Collaborative in Madison, Wisconsin. We're talking bread. I saw a quote in one of the articles that said, "Yeah, people are baking bread now because they're stuck at home and they got lots of time on their hands and they want to save a little money." And I shook my head. I said, "No, that's not it. No, it's really not. They're terrified to go out to the stores, and it's a lot. And actually, you can make a better product in your own kitchen."
And experiment with all sorts of grains you could never get at a normal store. A
Yeah.
bakery perhaps, but not.
I mean,
big box.
Ellen, how do you react to that? I mean, do you see the same thing happening?
Well, we've sold flour in our store specifically from the farms that we work with, because we've worked with local farms since we opened, and we've always sold quite a bit of flour. But I'll say that recently, since the pandemic, we're selling on average, I mean, a couple $1,000s of flour every month, which is insane for us. And people order it online. And we had a cookbook come out last year, and people are ordering this cookbook because it's focused on working with local and sustainable. And I don't use the word organic with my grains because, to be honest, if I know how the farmer's growing it, it might not be certified organic, but
Yeah.
it's actually grown that way. That's more important to me than a federal label of organic. Um, and so I've seen, yeah, like a huge jump, but I have seen that our sales have gone up as well with customers buying bread and pastries from us because sometimes they get a little tired of baking bread. And I mean, honestly, I'm ready to eat out as well because I'm tired of my own cooking. So,
And once it actually starts warming up, it's going to be harder to turn the oven on at home too.
yeah, that's right. That's true.
But you mentioned during the break, Ellen, sandwiches have become a big deal.
Yeah, so we've always done sandwiches, but on like simple ones like turkey and ham. And one of the things that we saw was people were tired of eating turkey and ham, deli meats. So we started upping our game with that. So we've come out with like a take home kit of like a croque monsieur, which is we have it all done up really, but you have to put the bechamel and the Gruyere on top and then heat it at home so it's fresh right when you make it. And people feel pretty proud about making that at home because you could still burn it. So there is some cooking involved. And then we started making this crispy chicken with a really nice cornmeal, the Bloody Butcher variety of cornmeal crusted on it, and with local turnips that we make a little turnip slaw. So we're starting to get even more kind of creative with sandwiches that people can take home in a meatball sandwich. So you go home with really good bread and the meatballs, and then you assemble it with mozzarella. So we're kind of trying to push the envelope with what people can take home and cook for their family.
Well, let me
Now I'm hungry for lunch.
I was going to say, me too. Whoa.
let me ask a question to both of you. Start with you, Alyssa. It sounds as though you're busier than ever. So are you guys in an industry that is actually seeing sales increase during this time, or are you just holding your own? How's it working out?
Well, I definitely am not going to say because we've lost all of our wholesale customers. So, but it is funny when I heard that song about staying home. I haven't worked this hard since the bakery first opened over 7 years ago. And, we're like all of us are in survival mode. We have to make do with a much leaner staff because our sales are down, but we're holding our own. And, the other thing to add is we actually moved locations just last week. So we had to move our entire bakery.
Wow.
It's been planned for this big growth and this exciting new bakery. And we literally, as a team, we couldn't bring in movers. We had to move it ourselves. We hired some people to move our equipment, but otherwise, we literally stopped baking for 2 days, moved our entire place, and then got it. So I I know there's a pandemic because we're in survival mode, but like literally I work, 12 hours a day and come home exhausted and eat like frozen, whatever I've frozen.
Eaten frozen. Okay. But I will say, and Peggy and I will agree with you, Ellen, we've never worked harder than we have in the last couple of months. I'm not one of those guys, and Peggy's not one of those gals that's sitting around trying to figure out what to do with their time. Holy smoke. I wish I had a few more hours in the day right now. I don't know how to keep up. Alyssa, what are you hearing from the bakeries in the collaborative?
I want to mention specifically our local mills. They are cranking it out. A lot of them have quadrupled, quintupled because of the absence of flour and grain in the places people are used to getting it. They are consumers who might not have been aware that there even were local mills processing sustainably raised local grain. They have seen a massive uptick. So those folks are moving quick, trying to get through all the new customers that have become aware of this opportunity to purchase this product and to have it be part of the way that our food dollars as consumers are impacting the local economy, which is super exciting because I think on the whole, grain has sort of been the last item to plates in the local food movement or in the regional food movement. So it's been great to see that. And grain farmers, if they have a mill to access or a way to get their product to a consumer, they are doing okay too. But as is true for all areas of the food system right now, if you're a farmer that doesn't have a direct line to your eater, you're struggling because the supply chains are not working right now in the traditional way. So I want folks to be aware of that. And then also, as Ellen said, bakeries have been gutted, and most bakeries produce at least a portion for wholesale accounts, which don't exist anymore. And both because of safety concerns around the pandemic and just reduced capacity, there are less people that are able to help carry the load. So, you know, folks are doing their best, certainly. And I think on the whole, grain-based businesses might be faring better than some others, but it certainly hasn't been a cakewalk for anyone. And I want to give a shout out too to our local breweries and distilleries who also use grain. They are struggling mightily. It's been really neat to see distilleries produce sanitizer during the pandemic, but I think we all know that hand sanitizer is not the same as a 10-year aged bourbon in terms of your revenues for that product, or certainly they shouldn't be. So that's hard. And I think especially for breweries that have a less shelf stable product than a distillery does, they are struggling.
Well, and one other thing I want to get in here while we have just a couple of minutes left, it's important to keep whatever supply lines you have going because you mentioned farmers, they have to plan ahead. This doesn't just happen overnight where you suddenly have grain. They need to know that if they plant it, there's going to be a market.
Yeah, and the farmers in our network over the past couple of weeks, I've been on the phone with them and they've put grain into the ground. The funny thing about farmers too that makes this all a bit ironic, they're used to dealing with such instability, whether it's in the weather or whatever else. This is kind of, I'm over dramatizing here a bit, but to a certain degree, this is sort of old hat for them. They are used to having to operate without knowing what's going to happen or whether they'll have a crop loss that year.
All right. And I do want to remind people that the program is called Neighbor Loaves. And as I said on my my blog post, it's breaking bread with Neighbor Loaves, and that's one way you can allow people to break bread. You can break your own bread and make your own. And actually, the photo that I put up there was a couple of loaves we baked here at home. By the way, I put my hand up. This is the first time in my life I've ever baked bread. Now, I didn't do it alone. I had Kathleen helping me, but we came out with a couple of wonderful, we've been baking raisin bread, cinnamon raisin bread, and it's awesome. It's just a treat. Any final words? Ellen, you've got like 10 seconds, and then Alyssa, same thing for you.
No, I'm just grateful for the people that have ordered and for Alyssa, having inspiration in the shower. I mean,
where all good ideas are born, right?
Yeah,
just graincollaborative.com/neighbor loaves to see the list of participating bakeries and to buy some loaves. And then if you are someone who's baking at home, check out our Upper Midwest grain resource list to find mills and buy Ellen's book so that you know what to do with that grain once you've got it.
And the name of the book again?
It's Heritage Baking.
Okay, and you can go to hewnbread.com and again, graincollaborative.com. Thank you both, Ellen and Alyssa, for being on the show. Good luck with the bread. It's the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. We'll be right back.
And if you got about now back in 1918, influenza had its run, but half the docs were busy overseas with World War I. Today we have mass media and
Welcome back to the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. No, she's wonderful. I love that. There's actually several. Can you believe it? There's several versions of that song related to COVID.
I can believe it.
Yeah. Welcome to the Keep Eating Healthy campaign on the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. Let's start with Backyard Patch Herbs are all locally grown and they're chemical free. You should try their hand-blended herb seasoned split pea soup mix or the red and brown lentil soup mix. You know what? Soup is so good in a time of pandemic. I don't know. It seems like in the middle of the day, I always want a bowl of soup or a cup of
Soup.
um, and by the way, the red and brown lentil soup mix is a vegan recipe with no meat. Soup is so good. What was that? Me or
No, that was my computer.
okay?
Sorry.
Your computer had just decided to
No, I had to
jump in.
relaunch Facebook. So
Yeah, you're having issues with Firefox too, aren't you? Boy,
yeah.
your computer is after you today. Anyway, the lentil mix is a vegan recipe with no meat, bouillon, or other animal products. Or the DIY rub and marinade box, a collection of perfect ingredients that allows you to make a selection of your own grill mixes for meat rubs and marinades. Now, then we have our friends at Prairie Fruits Farm and Creamery in Champaign, Illinois. They remind you that May, and I did not know this, is American Cheese Month.
Hmm.
So we get a ding for that. And well, today is Mother's Day. So you might order a dote on mom. And and if she gets it late, that's okay. You just say, "Oh, it was the virus.
It
We couldn't get
extends
it."
the holiday. We celebrate all month. There you go.
There you go. It's a dote on mom, cheese and accompaniments basket extravaganza, a perfect bite for mom, gift package of bloomies, honey, and bread, and a make mom some cinnamon buns package that features a recipe for cinnamon buns using Janie's mill flour, their chèvre for the frosting, and Voss Orchard pecans. Wow.
And
Okay.
Janie's Mill is part of the Artisan Grain Collaborative too.
Well, there we go. See, everything, whoops, everything ties together. I hit the plate, my plate here. Okay. Finally, there's an alternative to the store-bought meat mills. Cedar Valley Sustainable Farm, CSA, is a meat CSA. You know that the animals were raised with respect for them and the earth. And now during COVID-19, they're taking a la carte orders. They feature safe social distancing pickup at various locations in and around Chicago. Click on the Keep Eating Healthy logo at MikeNovak.net to order from all of these great operations. Help us support them while they support us. Go to MikeNovak.net for more details. This is the Mike Novak Show with Peggy Malecki. We have just a few minutes here, and we need to address something that is making people's heads explode, and it need not, and it's really frustrating. And I think part of it has to do with the COVID thing. People want to talk about anything else but COVID-19. So they're talking about those hornets, the Asian hornet, the killer hornet. What do they call it? The
The murder hornet.
murder hornet. And that's actually when
It was even on SNL last night. They mentioned the murder hornet.
I
So
believe they did. That's how it's taking off, and it's creating some problems. Peggy, you were just telling me that you were looking at an article about that and some of the really, really dumb things that people are
yeah,
doing.
the headline in yesterday's Los Angeles Times: panicked over murder hornets. People are killing native bees we desperately need. And the article starts saying, people get a grip. Basically, what's happening is people are panicking over a couple of hornets that have been spotted, headlines that are one says this, one says that. They're putting out traps and capturing native bees instead of any of the hornets.
Because you don't know the difference, folks. You can't tell the difference. Most people, when I do garden talks, I tell people, I say, okay, are you going to spray this bug? Show a picture of any insect, any kind of bug out there, and you say, and I say, are you going to spray it? And people will go, yeah, and I go, why? Do you know what it is? Can you identify it for me? No, you can't. Then
It's a
what
bug.
what the heck are you doing?
Well,
Um,
and in this case, they're putting out a generic trap that's going to attract everything else.
I'm going to tell you something right now, folks. You are not going to be stung by a murder hornet. Zero. You got like almost zero chance of that ever happening. Hey, remember killer bees? Back in the day, speaking of SNL, Saturday, back in John Belushi's day, they did the killer bee sketches. How many of us lie awake at night right now worrying about killer bees? So, what you should do is pay attention to the extension services because they have the best information. And I got some information from Illinois Extension, and State Master Gardener Specialist Candace Hart shared some of these talking points on the Asian hornet. They call it the Asian hornet, which is, I think, that's fine. You know, you call it the murder hornet, and then it leads to the dumb things that people do. So in December 2019, USDA confirmed the detection of one Asian giant hornet, or AGH, in Blaine, Washington. Washington Department of Agriculture is currently surveying the state for the pest. Should the WSDA locate any AGH nests, they will respond quickly to eradicate them. Although there are a number of unconfirmed sightings from the public, neither USDA nor WSDA has any evidence that AGH populations are established in Washington or anywhere else in the United States. These unconfirmed sightings may be lookalike hornet species that are known to occur in the United States. It does not attack people, by the way, unless it feels threatened, you know, kind of like a lot of bees. They are known to attack and kill other bees in the late summer when developing males and future queens need extra protein to complete their life cycle. They do not attack and kill bees at other times. And you can go to the Washington Department of Agriculture website for more information about that. I need to check, and I've got one other here, and I want to make sure we've got like a minute left here. This other one came from UC Riverside, University of California, Riverside. And the headline of the email says everything. Murder hornets invade headlines, not the U.S. And that's kind of what we're dealing with here. And according to one of their researchers, the fact that the second hornet turned, there were two, let's see, a resident of the U.S. side of the border, 50 miles from Blaine, Washington, reported 2 additional Asian giant hornets in December. Washington Department of Agriculture collected one, which was dead. The other reportedly flew into a nearby forest. Neither that live hornet nor its nest were ever found, but it is unlikely that the insect is still alive, said their spokesperson. So there you go. Okay, stick around. We got the second hour of the Mike Nowak Show coming up. For those of you listening on listening locally, we're done.
And you got
I love the sound of summer rain. I love the sunshine when skies are blue again. But soon the autumn wind will put a chill into my bones. I hate to see the summer go. We fell in love. It was early spring, you kissed me, and my heart began to sing. I picked you a dandelion, you gave me a rose. I hate to see the summer go. Such a bitter change of seasons. How I hate it, 'cause you're not here. Love comes and goes with no reason and lets the summer disappear. I still love you, and I can't let go. If I could hold back winter and the cold December snow, no, it might be summer for another month or so. I hate to see the summer go. Such a bitter change of seasons. How I hate it, 'cause you're not here. Love comes and goes with no reason and lets the summer disappear. I still love you, and I can't let go. If I could hold back winter and the cold December snow, you know it might be summer for another month or so. I hate to see the summer go. Thank you. I'm just going to do a quick one here for you. And this one was written a few summers ago, and I had this misfortune of breaking 2 bones in my hand. And it was a coincidence, too, because that happened on the very same day. That was the last softball game I ever played in my life. And there I was in the living room eating Advil and listening to it rain and watching the Des Plaines River come up. And then the news trucks came out and were interviewing people. I thought it was the end of the world coming. Then the kid down the street got his folk guitar out. They were predicting another rainstorm. And he sat on the corner with his guitar and he sang a song called "There's a Hard Rain A-Gonna Fall." And I thought for sure the world was going to end. But it didn't. And that's where this song came from. There's things you don't have any control of. It's called "It'll Be Better When It's Better." Oh, the sky's falling down and the creek is coming up that old rickety bridge. Lord, he's running out of luck. Nothing left to do but let the river overflow. It'll be better, it'll be better, it'll be better when it's better, I suppose. It'll be better, it'll be better, it'll be better when it's better, I suppose. Hey, the times are getting harder and the money's getting tight and the cost of living's killing me. Nothing's going right now, the polar cap is melting and the desert's gonna blow. It'll be better, it'll be better, it'll be better when it's better, I suppose. It'll be better, it'll be better, it'll be better when it's better, I suppose. When I was a little kid, I did what I was told. Now I go to work each morning in a corporate blindfold. I'm feeling like it's getting late, the gate is gonna close. It'll be better, it'll be better, it'll be better when it's better, I suppose. It'll be better, it'll be better, it'll be better when it's better, I suppose. I dug myself a hole and I fell right in. When a man comes along asking me where I've been, he said he never really cared, he just lets the four winds blow. It'll be better, it'll be better, it'll be better when it's better, I suppose. It'll be better, it'll be better, it'll be better when it's better, I suppose. I sat down and wrote a letter to the president and I asked him where the hell he thought the Constitution went. He called me back this afternoon, he said he didn't know. It'll be better, it'll be better, it'll be better when it's better, I suppose. It'll be better, it'll be better, it'll be better when it's better, I suppose. Picking at the scab is never gonna make it heal, and every broken bone will teach you how it's really gonna feel. But the sun is gonna rise again, the rooster's gonna crow, it'll be better. It'll be better, it'll be better when it's better, I suppose. It'll be better, it'll be better, it'll be better when it's better, I suppose. Oh, the sky is falling down and the creek is coming up. That old rickety bridge, Lord, is running out of luck. Nothing left to do but let the river overflow. It'll be better, it'll be better.
The second hour of the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. This hour is brought to you by Bartlett Tree Experts. Every tree needs a champion. Go to bartlett.com. Here they are again, Peggy Malecki and Mike Nowak.
All I need is good food to eat and make me healthy, wealthy, wide awake. Lettuce, tomatoes, rutabaga. What about those sweet potatoes? All I need is good food to eat. All I need is good food to eat. All I need is good tools to make me music, porches, lawn serene. Give me all
who are watching us on the Facebook stream and the YouTube's stream. I hope you enjoyed the musical interlude by our buddy Mark Dvorak, and I want to thank Kathleen for putting a little work into the graphics on that, and for our we're going to try to get more musicians on here, and so instead of you just sitting there by your computer trying to figure out when we're going to come back at 10:06, you actually get to hear some really, really great music. So it was wonderful to have Mark there. On this particular day, right now, I'm looking up at the skylight. Well, it seems to have stopped raining, but it's been sort of a dreary day, but
Yeah.
certainly better than yesterday morning when we had freeze. We had areas of hard freeze in the Chicago area. It was crazy. And in Indiana, some of it was weird because it was like south of here, Rensselaer,
Yeah.
Indiana.
Even in
20
Pennsylvania had freeze yesterday.
Yeah, Pennsylvania, in other places, it was kind of well, it's that lobe of polar jet or whatever, coming down and whacking us. And I'll be honest with you, I look at it as a good thing because it keeps people indoors. And what the other thing it does, it helps them get the bird count
Mhm.
and that's what we're going to be talking about in the second
And-
segment here.
And you're not going to like to hear this. There are 3 Orioles on my feeder right
Well,
now.
la dee da.
All right, that's it.
Enough. All right. And our guests are already.
I got one out there right now.
Stop it. Everybody stop it.
Oops,
I got
out there. I got 4.
I got a pavement and some cars. Okay. That's what I got here. All right. I don't want to hear your bird stories. I really don't. Save it for the segment. It's good to see, however, that some of the garden centers are tentatively opening up again. Because I was on the Ben Jarofsky show. He recorded something with me, and it's going to air later this afternoon. And we got to talking about that a little bit. And, for weeks we've been saying, hey, what you can really do during this pandemic is go out in your yard and garden. And the problem is, if you don't have the plants and the means to garden, that's not going to happen. And let's keep in account that this is the time of year when garden centers make their money.
Yeah, and
Well, they
plant
haven't been
sales.
making any money. Yeah, this is crazy because April got wiped out, and that is the big month. All right, and May, half of May is gone, and it's another big month for garden centers. And so, I saw a garden center in Chicago that was going to open 2 days ago, and I think they must have just looked at the forecast and said, why would we open if it's freezing?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's the reason, but that might have had something to do with it. So I got this piece from the National Gardening Association the other day, and how basically it's feast and famine for the garden industry right now. It's wreaking havoc, COVID-19, on the gardening industry, like many other industries. But they're just saying the folks are going to have to figure out how to adapt to this. And move forward. Just like, again, like a lot of industries, but in particular, this has been really brutal. And I expect to see a number of garden centers go belly up. I hope they don't. But it happened in 2008, and it's more than likely going to happen again. All right, we got to take a break, and when we come back, you guys get to talk about all your wonderful birds in your wonderful yards. La, 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 la. It's the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. We'll be right back.
He sucks every game.
All right, welcome back to the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. That's the Garth Brooks impersonation by Chris Mann from The Voice, he's done a lot of these COVID songs during the break. I always wonder about those folks sitting at home. They've all got the studios and the mics, and they all sound really professional. And then you've got the ones that kind of do it once or twice, and sometimes the audio's not quite as clean, but it is totally professional. A lot of them are very, very, very good. Well, yesterday was a big day in the birding world, as we alluded to in the previous segment. It was actually Global Big Day, which is from the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. It's an annual celebration of birds. It happens to coincide with International Migratory Bird Day. It was a day for folks to go out and observe birds and become citizen scientists by going to the Cornell Lab website where they could record their information. We'll have some of the local information that we got from our friend Bob Dolgan in a little bit, but let me introduce our guests. We have too many people on the Zoom right now, although I know you can do, like, I've seen conferences with 70 people on them, but we've got right here, we've got Josh Engel, who's the founder of Red Hill Birding. He was an ornithologist at the Field Museum in Chicago for a while before starting his own business. We have Sheryl DeVore, author, writer, photographer, teacher, public speaker. She does it all. She writes for not the Natural Awakening Chicago, for one, so you get a little ding for that. And of course, Birds and Blooms. And we have Pam Karlson, who's been on the show before, career artist, avid gardener, and birder, longtime volunteer with the Flint Creek Wildlife Rehabilitation. We finally convinced her last year. I'm so proud of myself. We convinced her to get a Facebook page because she has this amazing garden in Chicago, like right next to the freeway, and sees hundreds of different species of birds in her yard. And everybody asks, well, how do you do that? And you need to make it public. See, Pam? So all of you, welcome to the show.
Nice to be here.
Great to be here.
Let's start with Josh. Let's start with you because you were kind of giving a report during the break of some birds you saw. What kind of, all right, we know the big day was yesterday, but it's sort of an ongoing thing, isn't it? Or do you have to have the cutoff right at midnight to get all the numbers in?
Well, for the Global Big Day itself through Cornell, that's a midnight to midnight affair. So one day and it's done. But the idea is to get people using their app or their website called eBird, which is where you can record the data, record the birds that you observed. And you can do that anytime you want. So, I'm submitting lists to eBird almost every day, and it's a great way to sort of make my birding, which I would be doing anyway, to make it a little bit more useful as a citizen scientist. So the data all gets submitted to this database where it's made publicly available, and scientists can use it, and anyone really can look at the data and see what birds are around. And you can even, if you really want to dig in and do your own research, you can do that there too.
Yeah, and you can go to that. I've got all of those links. In fact, I have a link here that had some of the numbers worldwide from eBird. And by the way, it's ebird.org. It's not Freebird, it's eBird.
But it is
no lighter required.
Ooh,
Yeah,
good one.
But as Josh says, it is
Josh
free.
is awake.
In North America, there were 1,599 species recorded. What's a checklist? Anybody?
Yesterday?
Yeah. So I'm looking at the stats.
Wow.
It came in from Bob Dolgan.
Well, no. I'm looking at.
Oh, you're looking at eBird. Okay.
I'm looking at eBird because
Yeah, so that's
North America.
North America in that.
right.
Yeah, North America in that would be from the northernmost part of Canada and Alaska all the way down to where Panama meets Colombia. So it's a huge area, but incredibly diverse.
Because I don't know what a checklist is, but there were 77,454 checklists. So a
checklist is what the birders who are participating submit. So you make a list of all your birds, you enter it, you hit submit, and that is one list. So, for example, yesterday was also the spring bird count here in Illinois, which is an annual event to help monitor bird populations here. So, I was out doing the spring bird count and global big day at the same time, contributing to two different citizen science projects. But I submitted, I can't remember, maybe 8 or 10 lists over the course of the day. So each one of those lists counts as one checklist.
I see. Okay. And then the participants in North America were 34,353. So across,
that's astounding.
Is that a good number?
To me, it's a mind-boggling number that 34,000 people submitted, that were out birding yesterday in North America, submitting lists, in sort of a targeted fashion of going out with this goal in mind. I think that's really an amazing number.
And for people listening to us in other parts of the country who get this on a tape delay, this was on May 9th. So you missed it. So let's say somebody did miss it and they want to still be a citizen scientist and join in the bird spotting here. What would you advise, Josh?
Well, it's a little more difficult now because of COVID. It's especially this time of year. Often there's free field trips that local birding organizations run almost every day. But of course, those are not happening right now. But a lot of the organizations are doing online events where you can, learn about local birds or learn about some topics. So, for example, Chicago Ornithological Society has events every couple of weeks that are really interesting, where they get prominent ornithologists, birders from around the area to present about something. So they actually had a couple of field museum scientists doing that the other day. But anyone can download some of the Cornell apps, in particular Merlin, which helps people identify birds, and eBird, which helps people keep track of their sightings and contribute to the database. And with those two apps, you can start looking right out into your own yard or at your local park and start learning about birds, how to identify them, and contributing to these citizen science projects.
What I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to ask all of our guests here, what was your best sighting yesterday?
Well, like I was mentioning in the break, it was a pretty slow day for birding yesterday. So, you always hope that it's going to be gangbusters migration on the global big day, spring bird count day. Yesterday was a little slower. I guess our highlight was seeing a couple of peregrine falcons. That's always really exciting. One of my favorite birds. We watched one dive bomb a turkey vulture, which was sort of cool. We also saw another kind of falcon called a merlin, which is a smaller falcon, migratory falcon. We saw one of those migrating up the lakefront. Those are two standout birds from yesterday.
Well, we should mention that here in certain parts of the Midwest, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Peggy, you mentioned Pennsylvania, it got cold. And why is that? Do the birds then just hunker down? And let's go to Pam. You're nodding. So does that bring the numbers down?
Maybe. I don't know. Josh might know more about the temperature issue, but when the winds are coming from the north going south, like we were discussing on break, that slows down the migration, because when they're flying up from the south, they want to be riding those winds that come from the south. So numbers are down for that reason, for sure. And just in general, because it's been so cold, more north winds, keeping them bottlenecked down south. That's what I'm thinking is happening.
Bill, I'd like to add something to that, because the birds that are coming through now, a lot of them are neotropical migrants, and they rely on insects for food. And the insect population goes down when it's cold, of course, because not as many insects can survive. And it's also just there are insects in general, numbers are declining. So I am not sure, I know it's the cold weather and the weather patterns and the winds, but then now they have to contend with finding food. So it's going to be really interesting to see all this data that we've collected over many, many years to see if numbers of birds are dropping in general because there's fewer insects.
And that, of course, is Sheryl DeVore. Yes, Peggy?
So Blog Trotter and Birdcast, which Cornell Lab of Ornithology puts up as well, said the polar vortex, definitely this current polar vortex, has affected migration and slowed it. The night of May 8th to 9th, the entire Midwest and much of the Northeast had low to no migration at all due to the super cold temperatures. The birds just stayed south, and so they're delayed. And as you say, Sheryl, the insects are here and then the birds aren't. When the weather delays it, that can have some very interesting effects on them.
Maybe Cornell needs to do a reboot. Do it in another week, and when the weather's a little warmer, then you might get some different numbers. I mean, obviously there's nothing you can do to control those kinds of situations, but in other parts of North America, obviously it was warm, and people were out there and they were able to see some of the migrating birds. By the way, back to the world numbers real quick. The species leader, who wants to guess which country it is, unless you've already looked at this? Anybody?
I could definitely guess. Yeah, Scott has to be Colombia.
Oh, ding. Wait, you get a ding there. Wow.
He gets the coffee chair.
Colombia has more bird species than any other country in the world, and they take Global Big Day very seriously. So those two factors really help.
They had more than 300 species greater than the next country, which is Peru. So Colombia had 1303, Peru 994, Ecuador 950. Obviously, Amazon has a lot to do with this, right? Not the company, okay?
The Amazon.
Boy, Jeff Bezos gets his fingers in everything. Brazil is fourth at 887, and the United States comes in fifth.
That's great!
Wow.
Is that a good
I'm
number?
surprised.
Yeah.
Okay, Mexico was sixth, Costa Rica seventh, Panama eighth, Argentina ninth, and Kenya 10th. So there you go. Boy, Peggy, I don't know where to go from here. I got kind of trapped by my numbers here.
Got caught in the data there, and actually. Since we are heading soon into a break, we have a question from Audrey, who asks if the data collected tracks how things like light pollution and cities are affecting bird migration. Has there been any changes? Can we see that in the data?
Probably not in these data in particular. But there are studies that have been done about light pollution. We know that cities have a huge effect on migration. There's some evidence that has been published fairly recently showing that the lights may have the effect of attracting birds. So, almost in a way of like insects are attracted to the lights, birds can be attracted to these lights. So, one thing that brings to mind to me is just how important all of our pockets of migratory bird habitat are in our area, if we're going to be attracting birds here during migration. So everything from Pam's yard to all our forest preserves, these are all really important patches of habitat given the urban mass, the urban spread that we have around here.
Right, and cities dimming the lights too. But yeah, sorry, Mike, you were gonna.
Oh, I'm just gonna say before we go to the break, we didn't ask Sheryl and Pam what their big discoveries were yesterday. Their best sightings. So Sheryl, let's start with you.
Well, I was with my husband, Steve Bailey, who's an ornithologist. So I have to say that I'm going to see some good birds, even if there aren't a lot of them. And we found a pair of trumpeter swans, which are really rare as nesters in Illinois, and they are likely nesting. This was close to the Wisconsin border. And then sandhill cranes with colts we saw. And to me, that was, people might say, well, what really rare bird did you see? Well, the truth is just to be out there and just seeing the birds and hearing them sing and looking at the vistas, to me, that like Pam said, it's like a vacation. It's like you're in heaven. It was just a wonderful day.
Okay, well, Pam, you're going to have to wait until we get back from the break because we're out of time here. And when we come back, we'll find out what Pam saw in her backyard in Chicago. It's the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. We're talking birding. We'll be right back.
They say I have the wrong login. Don't even know where to begin. But did they see the screenshots we sent to you? We tried login, we tried password. My dad is true computer nerd, but Zoom still keeps me out of our meeting. Let me log in to Zoom meeting. See my classmates and my team.
I think that some of our guests will relate to this about trying to get the login to the Zoom meeting, and that's a very funny song done by a fifth grader to the Leonard Cohen song "Hallelujah," and it's all about getting the passwords from Zoom and into the darn meeting. So there you go. Hey, we'll be right back talking about birds, but welcome to the Keep Eating Healthy campaign on the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. Let's talk about backyard patch herbs. They're all locally grown and they're chemical free. Try their hand blended herb seasoned split pea soup mix or the red and brown lentil soup mix, a vegan recipe with no meat bouillon or other animal products, or the DIY rub and marinade box, a collection of perfect ingredients that allows you to make a selection for your own grill mixes for meat rubs and marinades. Then there's the folks at Prairie Fruits Farm and Creamery in Champaign. They remind you that May is American Cheese Month, and of course, today is Mother's Day, so you might order a Dote on Mom cheese and accompaniments basket extravaganza. It has a perfect bite for mom gift package of bloomies, honey, and bread, and a Make Mom Some Cinnamon Buns package that features a recipe for cinnamon buns using Janie's Mill flour, which we talked about in the first hour. Cedar Valley Sustainable Farm CSA is a meat CSA. Now, you know, when you order from them and you pick up from them that the animals were raised with respect for them and the earth. And now during the COVID-19 emergency, they're taking a la carte orders. In fact, Kathleen and I are about to do that. They feature safe social distancing pickup at various locations in and around Chicago. To find all of these great operations, click on the Keep Eating Healthy logo at MikeNovak.net in order to put it in your order. Help us support them while they support us. Go to MikeNovak.net for more details. Welcome back to the show. We're talking about the Big Bird Day, which was the 9th of May, but birding goes on all the time, and you can always be a citizen scientist. And that's why we have on the Zoom machine today, Pam Karlson, Sheryl DeVore, Josh Engel. Pam, let's pick up with you. You need to tell us what your big sighting was on the big day yesterday.
I have to say there wasn't anything that was super unusual, but we did have 5 Baltimore Orioles all day. We've had 4 for over a week now.
Hey, 4 more and you have a baseball team. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Orioles. So that's always a treat. They're such vivid, beautiful birds. I never tire of seeing them. As with the rose-breasted grosbeak, they're stunning birds. The males are gorgeous. Had those all day. Had a Cooper's hawk that ate a meal in the front. That was kind of cool to watch.
Wait. And what kind of a meal was it?
It was a bird of some sort. I got to zoom in. I'm thinking it was either a pigeon because we're right by the Kennedy.
Maybe a mourning dove or something.
Or a mourning dove. It was one of the other. So that was cool to sit there and watch it feeding. And then sparrows. We had white-crowned sparrows, white-throated sparrows. We had a Lincoln sparrow, which I love. They're one of my favorites because they have just really fine detail in their feathers. But overall, kind of what Sheryl was saying, just to participate, I'm getting goosebumps talking about it, but to me, with all that's going on in the world with COVID, it was just so cool to participate in something so positive and healthy and wonderful, to celebrate the birds and thinking that everybody around the world was participating in it. And like I was even texting with my friend Stephanie. She was watching in her native garden, and my oldest sister called me to tell me that she saw an indigo bunting, and she was super excited. So I think just the overall participation and joy was a healthy thing for people all over the world.
And spring goes on around us. Spring continues.
Yes.
Yeah, and of course, you see different birds at different times of the year too. It's almost like plants, that you see the succession of plants during the year. You also see the succession of birds, don't you, Josh?
Totally. Yep. And especially this time of year, every single day is different. There's birds arriving from the south every day. We were talking about how today there was a big arrival, but even yesterday, when the weather was not conducive to it, there were some new birds, because birds have to migrate this time of year. They don't have a choice. They have to get to their breeding grounds. They have a very limited amount of time to be there and reproduce. So every day is different, and every day you can see something new.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that makes the spring migration more special is this is the time that especially the male birds are in their most colorful plumage. They come through in the fall, but they're dull and drab, and you're not hearing the songs, and you're not seeing the brilliant yellows and oranges. And
they're all tuckered out by then.
Yeah. So Pam, your yard you've worked on for years. You've built an amazing habitat oasis in the city. Doug Tallamy wrote about you, actually, in his most recent book, Nature's Best Hope. You're famous.
Yeah.
So how do you do that in the city?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because I'm sitting here looking at no birds right now out in my front, and I see what I get when I put the bird feeder up. I get a gazillion sparrows, and then the pigeons come and they try to feed, and occasionally a cardinal will land on there, or a finch. How do you do what you do there?
I think the main thing is, there's several key ingredients to a successful bird garden. Layering, planting for layers, because the birds have all different feeding styles. Some like to stay on the ground, hiding underneath plants. Some like to feed in trees. It's very diverse, and very diverse diets. Also, no pesticides, including herbicides, because you want those insects. Insects are really so important for birds. And if you have the right habitat, it all works together. So you're not like inundated by mosquitoes, because the birds are eating the mosquitoes and dragonflies are eating the mosquitoes. So it's practicing environmentally friendly gardening techniques, using as many natives as you can. And if your yard is small, like ours is quite small, and we're half a block from the Kennedy Expressway, and we're underneath a major runway to O'Hare, and busy streets. I mean, so natives, and I use cultivars of natives also to get the diversity, because they're smaller. And just that over the years, if people can just turn little bits of their yard and build upon that. That's what I did. I started with a little patch and just continued to add and add and add and add. And the more bird species that come, the more motivating it is and joyful.
What about water?
Water's a big key. So when we put in a water feature, we have a stream. The birds bathe in the stream and they fly catch over the stream. So if you can even just do like a little bubbler, that makes a big difference. They
in
love
a bird
this.
bath, you mean?
Yeah. They love the sound of water. So you don't have to do anything elaborate. But that's really important, is to provide water for them, not only to drink, but for bathing. Like it was like around 5 o'clock yesterday, all the birds are bathing.
All at once. Okay.
Put little towels out for them too.
Sheryl, do you have any tips you'd like to? We got just a couple of minutes left. I want to get to Sheryl and the Josh. Sheryl, what are your tips for?
Well, I agree with Pam, and diversity and native, and layers are all important, and some of the plants will grow in your yard, they might not grow in somebody else's yard, and vice versa, so you have to see what works. I happen to have a lovely little stand of cardinal flowers and blue lobelias. I don't know why they grow there, but hummingbirds love them. And then also some trumpet creeper. Orioles will pierce part of the flower and get some of the juice out of there. So you watch, you learn what they love, and you keep adding. And that to me, it's just like put some natives in there and just watch what's happening, and the layers too, and the water. The water is also important. We have bird baths and little fountain things.
All right, let's give Josh. You get the final word here, Josh.
Well, I would say, they have all the great advice for what to put in your backyard, and I can tell you what to look for a little bit. There's the three birds that I sort of consider the trifecta of beautiful spring migrant backyard birds: indigo bunting, rose-breasted grosbeak, and Baltimore oriole. And those are birds that, even if don't consider yourself a birder, they're so brilliant. They'll come to backyard. So just be on the lookout for those. And maybe you'll get especially lucky and even find a scarlet tanager, which is the most incredible red color that you've ever seen in your life.
You guys, you might as well be speaking in a different language. Okay, I am just going. That's me. I'm kind of an idiot. Hey, thank you all for being on the show. Pam Karlson, Sheryl DeVore, Josh Engel. We appreciate it. You're welcome back anytime. We've got Rick DeMaio and Weather and Climate coming up. This is Mike Nowak with Peggy Malecki.
Tomorrow, they'll say words like circle back and cash flow to everyone. All my kids want to play all day. I'm working, and we made the same mess as yesterday. Tomorrow, I'll betcha tomorrow will be the same as today.
Welcome back to the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. That's the Holderness family. The Holderness family does a whole bunch of the Holderness family is the one that did the PC version of Baby It's Cold Outside that I played during the holidays. It's time to go home, whatever. Anyway, we do the thing. Let's just go to Rick DeMaio, meteorologist extraordinaire, who predicted quite accurately that we were going to get a freeze, and boy, oh boy, did you come through this week. I'm not sure that's so good, but your prediction was spot on, Rick.
Oh, thanks. I mean, it's recognizing patterns, it's recognizing long-term trends, and like I said, these kind of forecasts, you can start large. 3 days out, you go medium, and then 24 hours out, you go small. But if you start to focus too close on the small too soon, you kind of lose track of what's happening. What was interesting is while we were getting, the freeze, they were getting record amounts of snow in parts of the Poconos, the Catskills, the Green Mountains of Vermont, anywhere between 2 and as much as 8 inches of snow. And this was all the way down to about 1,000 feet elevation. So while we got the cold here, parts of the Northeast New England got the snow. And again, you're looking at the calendar and you're like, all right already, the first day of summer is 6 weeks away, and we're talking about winter weather. I mean, at least let's have somewhat of a normal spring here, but our weather staying wet today, and believe it or not, getting colder in about 3 or 4 hours as another polar air mass comes down in our direction.
Oh boy, I can hardly wait.
Thank you, Mr. Sunshine.
And something else I noticed because I've got some seedlings out in the backyard. It's been dry the last few days, and you don't notice it when the temperature's cold.
Very, very, very low relative humidity. You're exactly right.
Which is part of why it got so cold, isn't it?
Absolutely, Peg. I mean, when you look at those the dew points that came down the lake on Friday, typically with that kind of a cold air mass, the amount of latent heat release and condensation that's evaporated into the atmosphere from Lake Michigan this time of year should easily produce overcast skies through the night. But we had that 4 or 5 hour period of clouds Friday morning, and by noon we were clear, and the dew points were basically in the low mid 20s. And when you get mid-20s dew points, typically your overnight low temperature will fall to the dew point temperature as long as the winds are light. And if you guys notice, Saturday morning, there was no frost anywhere. This was a freeze. And the reason why there was no frost was because, as you and Mike just pointed out, Peg, was it was dry. So typically when you have these kind of marine air masses come in, lay down a little bit of haze and some fog, you clear out, you get frost. That didn't happen with this. This was an air mass that basically originated pretty much close to the North Pole, came all the way across Hudson Bay, did not modify at all, came all the way across Lake Superior, produced 2 to 4 inches of snow in the UP of Michigan, and then came all the way down the length of Lake Michigan. And even though O'Hare got to 31 degrees, didn't break the record, which was 27, there were many places outside of the urban heat island that got down to 25, 26, 27 degrees for 6 or 7 hours, which qualified as a hard freeze. I actually had to call up WGN radio because they kept saying widespread frost tonight. And I'm like, guys, there's not going to be frost with this. This is a freeze. This is a hard freeze. And they kept saying, well, what's the difference? And I had to explain it to them. And I don't like to do that, but there's a big difference between the frost and the freeze.
I guess Skilling must have been otherwise engaged at the time. But so what's going on here? Big picture. Is the polar vortex wobbling around the pole again?
Yeah. It actually got dislodged about 3 weeks ago, and was forced southward over Hudson Bay. And Hudson Bay, Canada, this time of year is it's brutal. I mean, you look at some webcams of that area, and the entire body of water is frozen over. There's still a lot of snow across southeast Canada. And if you can get pieces of the polar vortex come anywhere near Hudson Bay this time of year, it'll stay there for easily 4 or 5 weeks. Now, what's keeping it there also is the fact that you have this ridge in the atmosphere that's producing, very high-level winds north now of Fairbanks. Fairbanks hit 70 yesterday. They could hit 80 today. So it's always not, I should say, it's not always one thing. It's normally a combination of several things. But we're lucky that this pattern that we're in right now wasn't here 2 months ago. We would be talking about a much, much colder and snowier end of the winter season, which we didn't have. But what's odd is that we had so much snow in October, November, and then in March and April that we ended up with only a 2-inch deficit for the season, which is quite odd. I have not looked at the deficit yet so far for this month, temperature-wise, but I'm sure we're probably close to about 10 degrees below normal for the month.
Yeah, I read something that said Mother's Day is colder than Christmas was.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Peg. Christmas was 57 degrees. And Mother's Day so far, whatever our temperature was about 2 or 3 days ago, 2 or 3 hours ago, that'll be it because the wind's already turned around to the west. So we'll end up with a high of about, I think, 52 or 53 today when the normal is 68. And the normal high on Christmas is 30. Adding to the deficit, right? And then on Christmas Day was 57. So, I mean, anytime you have a warm day or warm temperatures on a holiday like Christmas, you can compare it to many of the days and go, that's not right. And it certainly is not right. But, yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, just to say, let's get us a forecast, but since we're in the middle of this, where does it go from here?
All right. So we're not done with the rain today. There's a little bit more coming down with this upper low. I was just looking, and I sent you guys some updated information. Overnight low temperatures, if people are concerned, maybe down to about 33 or 34. So we're not going to get a freeze. There's going to be too much cloud cover for that. But then it looks like we kind of moderate a little bit with temperatures mid to upper 50s, close to 60 degrees for the next 4 to 5 days, and really nothing in the way of any long-term significant warming until probably the end of next week.
Okay, keep it in mind. Thank you, Rick DeMille. You have a great Mother's Day, whatever you do today.
Sounds good. Thanks, Mike. I'll talk to you next week.
Thanks.
All righty. Want to thank everybody who is on the show today. If I could find the list here, it's here. Oh, Alyssa Hartmann, Ellen King, Pam Karlson, Sheryl DeVore, Josh Engel, Rick DeMaio, and the rest. Until next time, go green or
go home.
Miss much.